Good evening, all. I hope you all are safe and good. And this is our second session of the interview program. So, in this today's session, we'll be discussing about the uh, topics which has to be focused in Windows Server administration. So, whenever you're preparing for the interview, uh, being a Windows administrator or a Wintel administrator. So you need to focus on certain topics. So you need to be minimum strong with the topics which now I'm going to discuss with you. So these are all the topics which is mandatory for any professionals to be strong with, for any Windows professionals or any Wintel professionals to be strong with. So we will start with the topics. We'll be starting with the topics that has to be focused on preparing for the interview. So the first important topic any Windows professional should be strong with is the user administration. So where the professional should be uh, very much strong in the user administration, like creating the user account, adding the user to the respective groups, and resetting the password of the user whenever required, and configuring the home folders, or configuring the logon script, or configuring the uh, roaming profile or something like that. So managing the user account is very much essential, and also adding the user account to the respective OUs, so based on the user's project or whatever it might be. And the next important topic or the concept which the Windows administrator should be strong with is the group policy management. So any Windows professional should be definitely he should be strong in group policy management. So which is a bare minimal knowledge which is required for any Wintel or a Windows administrator. So group policy management, like creating the OUs, and creating the GPOs, and attaching the GPO to the uh, OUs, and configuring the policies, like configuring the administrative templates, where we'll be configuring the desktop wallpaper settings, or restricting the user access to local drives like C drive or D drive, or restricting the user accessing the USB storage media, or restricting the user modifying the wallpaper settings. So something like this. So this kind of configurations any Windows professional should be strong with. And also the user should be strong with configuring the other configurations of the group policies, like managing the password policies, or managing the account logout policies, and even logon script using configuring the logon script using the group policy, and uh, also configuring the software restriction policies. And even through group policy we can map the network shared folders, and we can configure the shared printers. So all these things, so these are all the essential concepts or the topics which a Windows professional should be strong with. And also he should be strong in file server administration. So speaking about the file server administration, so the professional, he or she should be strong in managing the shared folders, like creating the shared folders, and uh, providing access to the users or groups uh, based on the project requirement, or based on the uh, role of the employee, or based on the department of the employee. So creating and managing the shared folders, any uh, Windows professional should be strong with. And also configuring the share permission and security permission. And also he should be able to manage the disk quota, so configuring the quota limit for the employees based on his requirement, his or her requirement. And also the other important responsibility of the file server administrator is to regularly verify or monitor the uh, disk space usage, free space and usage, and latency of the file server when an employee is accessing the file server through the network. So these are all the essential things any Windows administrator should be strong with in the file server administration. And apart from that, uh, the professional should be strong in DFS also. So DFS is I hope you all know that DFS is a distributed file system. So in DFS, the employee or the professional should be strong with configuring the DFS namespace and configuring the DFS namespace server and configuring the uh, folders in the DFS namespace and configuring the DFS replication and ensuring the availability of the DFS server. And these are all the essential knowledges any Windows administrator should be strong with. And another important topic where every Windows professional, not only the Windows professional, any server administrator, he might be a Linux administrator or a Windows administrator or a VMware administrator. So anyone who is they should be strong in RAID. RAID in the sense, so they should be strong in configuring the hardware RAID as well as the software RAID. So most of the organization will be expecting the professional should have good knowledge in configuring the hardware rate. So not only just configuring the hardware rate and doing other configurations like migrating the RAID levels based on the requirement and uh, mm, um, changing the volume capacity maybe when the capacity requirement changes in future, like adding additional disk to the existing RAID volumes and repairing the RAID volumes if there is um, any failure occurs. Say example, if the disk goes down, so in that case how the professional should be able to handle how to replace the failed disk with a new disk and how to repair the failed volume with the new disk. So these are all the areas where the Windows professional should be strong with, and not only just configuring and managing the RAID levels, and if even some in some cases we will be also required to coordinate with the vendors when in case if you want to replace the RAID controller or replace the disk. So this coordination part also you should be very much familiar with. So whenever you are speaking in the interview, just saying the technical steps alone is not going to prove your experience. So all this process is involved. So whatever the concept or whatever the configuration you explain in front of the interviewer, so you should be able to deliver in such a way that you're following the industry standard process like ITL process. So through that process, how you are going to handle the situation, or how you are going to handle the support ticket. So all these things you have to keep in mind, and in such a way you need to deliver. And the other important topic or the concept uh, where any Windows professional should be strong with is the DNS server. So the professional should be strong with how the name DNS name resolution process works. So he should be able to theoretically explain so how the name resolution process works, and he should be able to explain about the DNS zones. So what is the primary zone, secondary zone, and the stub zone, and also he should be able to explain about the forwarders like DNS forwarder or the conditional forwarder, and he should also have a strong knowledge on the DNS resource records. Like he should know what is A record, what is LAS record, what is NS record, what is MX record, and especially he should know what is SRV record and what is the use of this SRV record, and if some records are missing or misconfigured, how to uh, um, rectify that. So these things any Windows professional should be strong with. And also the profession should be strong with a DHCP server. So he should be he should know how DHCP server works, and what is the DHCP process, like DHCP discover, DHCP offer, DHCP request, and the DHCP acknowledgement. So he should be very much strong in the DHCP process. So whenever asked in the interview, he should be able to deliver about the DHCP process. And also he should know about the DHCP um, scopes, like regular scope, super scope, and multicast scope. So he should be able to explain about the scopes, and also he should know how to create the DHCP scopes, and how to configure the DHCP scope range, and even if required, how to modify the DHCP scope range, and how to backup and restore the DHCP scopes. And also he should know how to reserve the IP address based on the requirements. Something like if in their organization they may have a, a printer, network printer, or any other devices, so which may require reserved IP address. So in that case, this professional should be having a good knowledge on IP address reservations, and also he should have a good knowledge on the IP subnetting, because based on the knowledge on the IP subnets, so he'll be able to configure and manage the DHCP superscopes. So these are all the essential knowledge any Windows professional should have. And also coming to the web server administration. So speaking about the web server administration, most of the companies might have a web server on premises, or they may have a web server hosted somewhere else. So being a Windows professionals, so we should be able to manage the uh, web servers, like creating the websites, and managing the configurations, like configuring the document settings, or configuring the SSL related settings, or configuring authentication related settings. So all these things the professional should be able to do. And also if in case any uh, new sites has to be created, and for that, coordinating with the uh, network team. So whenever you create a new website, so this website need to be published, maybe it might be an intranet site or an internet site, so wherever the site is going to be accessed from. So for that, the required firewall configurations has to be done. So the Windows administrator should be able to coordinate with the firewall team or the network team to configure, to publish the web server in the internet or in the intranet. So the uh, administrator should have the required skills to coordinate with the network team or the security team also. And also the professional should be strong in FTP server administration. So FTP server administration, in the sense he should be able to uh, uh, create the FTP sites, and he should be able to publish the FTP sites, coordinating with the network team, and also configuring the authentication for the FTP users, configuring home directory for the FTP users. And these are all the essential knowledge in the FTP administration. And speaking about the WSUS server, uh, again, any Windows environment requires a WSUS server for installing the patches on the end user devices or the servers. So where the professional should be having a good knowledge how to configure the WSUS server, and how to perform the regular maintenance activities, and how to perform the like adding the computer groups, and adding the computer memberships based on the computer groups, and approving the patches for the computer groups. And so these are all the knowledges the Windows WSA server administrator should have. And also the essential knowledge in WDS, that is Windows Deployment Server. Most of the organizations, medium or enterprise level companies, will have a WDS server for OS deployment for the end user devices. So where the professional should have a good knowledge in creating the WDS image, that is creating the new deployment image, and also he should know how to capture the image, and also he should have the knowledge how to customize the image when required, and how to perform the deployment, and how to do other configurations for the operating system deployment. So these are all the essential skills where the WDS administrator should have. And also speaking about the terminal server, most of the companies, maybe some few companies might be using the Windows remote desktop service for publishing the remote applications. Maybe most of the companies might be using Citrix or any other products, but anyhow, any Windows professional should have a good knowledge in the terminal server. First of all, he should know what is a terminal server, so how this terminal server is used, and how to configure the terminal server, that is how to configure the session host server, and how to configure the session broker, and how to configure the web access server, and also he should know how to create the session collection, and how to publish the remote applications to the session collections. So these are all the things the terminal server administrator should have. And also he should have a good knowledge in managing the printer server. So in managing the printer server, the professional should know how to, first of all, he should know how to configure the printer server, and how to add the network printers to the printer server, and how to manage the drivers, 64-bit and 32-bit drivers for the printer server, sorry, for the particular printer. And he should know how to manage the deployment of the printer for the end user devices using the group policies. So these are all the things essential for the printer administrator. And also the professional should have a good knowledge on backup and restore, where he should know how to take the backup and how to restore the backup. So most of the organization will be using the third-party tools for the backup and restore. So having the backup and third-party tool knowledge for backup and restore is a added advantage. And also the professional should know how to take the backup, and how the he should know how the backup works, like the incremental backup or differential backup, or the uh, copy backup, or the normal backup. So how these backup types works, and how the archiving or how this archive attribute plays a major role in the backup and restore of the data. So the professional should have a good understanding on the type of backup, first of all. And also he should have a good knowledge on the backup media like the tape media, or the storage media, or the cloud media. So he should have enough knowledge on this backup medias. And also he should know the process which is followed in backupping the data, or the restoring the data especially. So while restoring the data, definitely a certain process has to be followed. So the professional should have a good knowledge on the process which is followed in restoration of the data. And the other important concepts that has to be focused in Active Directory. So that is a very much essential knowledge. So first of all, the person or any Windows professional should be strong about what is Active Directory, what is Active Directory service. Basically, he should have a good understanding, first of all, what is a domain, and what is a domain controller, and what is Active Directory service. And in Active Directory service, what is Active Directory partition? So we all know Active Directory has three major partition, like schema partition, configuration partition, domain partition, and one more, application partition. So the professional should have good knowledge on the partitions. So whenever he is asked about the partitions, so we should be able to explain about each partition, what information is stored in schema partition, what information is stored in configuration partition, and what information is stored in domain partition, and what information is stored in application partition. And also we should explain which partition is replicated to which domain controller, and in what scenarios, what kind of partition is replicated to which domain controllers. So this conceptual understanding is essential. And also the professional should be good about FSMO rules. So he should know what is FSMO rule, that is what is a flexible single master operation rule, and what are all the 5 rules, and what are forest wide rules, and what are the domain wide rules. And also he should know the functionality of each and every rule. So he should know what is the function of a schema master rule, and what is the function of domain naming master rule, and what is the function of RAD master role, what is the function of PDC emulator role, and what is the function of infrastructure master role. So these understanding on the roles is very much essential. And not only the understanding on the roles, he should be able to manage the roles. So manage the roles in the sense uh, like uh, in few environment we might distribute the roles in different domain controllers. Basically the forest wide roles will be running only on the parent domain's primary domain controller, and maybe if required we can move the role to some other domain controller of the same domain. And every child domain will have its own domain wide role holder. Even that roles can be changed based on the requirement, especially in case of active directory migration. So whenever there is a scenario of migrating the domain controller, maybe the scenario might be different, like migrating the hardware or migrating the older operating system to newer operating system. So the scenarios may differ, but the migration knowledge is very much essential. So in case of migration, how the roles are going to be managed, how to perform the role transferring the FSMO roles, and transferring the FSMO roles using the consoles like Active Directory users and computer, or the Active Directory domains and trust consoles, or you're transferring the FSMO roles using the NTDS utility. So these essential knowledge is required. And also one more thing, if in case if the company has one primary domain controller and an additional domain controller, accidentally if the primary domain controller goes down, so definitely the additional domain controller is not going to come up automatically as a primary domain controller. So where the professional or the IT team has to take care of that. So where we are responsible to promote the additional domain controller as a primary domain controller. So in that scenarios, how you will do this. So you should know how to seize the FSMO rules. So you should know how to bring up the additional. You should know what are all the procedures that should be followed to bring up the additional domain controller as a primary domain controller in case of failure of a primary domain controller. So, and also he should know what are all the process or the procedures that should be followed for migrating old hardware to the new hardware, or migrating old operating system to the new operating system. So what are all the procedures should be followed? So what are all the steps should be followed? So these are all the essential things any Windows professional should be strong with in the Active Directory migration. And also the professional should be strong in Active Directory replication. So we all know Active Directory replication plays a major role in the uh, mm, functioning of the Active Directory, or functioning of the domain, or in case of multiple domains in a forest. So to make all the domain controllers work without any issues, so this replication plays a major role. So where first of all the professional should be good in the concepts of replication. So he should know how the replication works, and he should know what is the functionality of the KCC, and he should know what is USN, and he should know what is a global catalog, and also he should know what is a tombstone object, and he should know what is a garbage collection process, and he should know what is the replication connection object, and how to manage this replication connection object, and how to manage the schedule of the replication. And also he should know how to perform the replication manually. By default there will be automated schedule in the replication. So the professional should know how to manually perform the replication. And also he should know how to force the replication. And if there is any issues in the replication, he should know how to resolve it. So most of the cases, the issue related to replication will be because of misconfiguration in the DNS SRV records. So where the professional should know how to troubleshoot this kind of replication issues and how to verify the DNS SRV records in the DNS servers. And also the professional should have a good knowledge in configuring the site replication. So he should know how to configure multiple sites for Active Directory replication, and how to handle the how to configure the site replication, that is the intra-site replication and inter-site replication. And you should know what is the protocol used for intra-site replication and inter-site replication, and the default schedule for intra-site replication and inter-site replication. And also the professional should have enough knowledge to coordinate with the network team or the security team for allowing the traffic for intersite replication in case if we have branches in different location. So in that case, for configuring the intersite replication, so definitely we need to coordinate with the network team or the security team for allowing the respective traffic. And also we should know how to configure the global catalog for any Active Directory site, and you should know how to configure the bridgehead server and all the other things. So again, the professional should have a good knowledge on the tools like RepLmon and RepAdmin. Basically, the RepAdmin tool is used to force replication between the domain controllers, and RepLmon again, it's a tool used for managing the replication or monitoring the replication between the domain controllers. So the professional should be very much strong in using this like RepLmon or RepAdmin. And also the professional should be having a good knowledge in Active Directory trust relationship. So he should know the trust relationship, how it works within a forest, and he should know how the trust relationship work between the forest. And he should have a good understanding on the trust, a different type of trust like internal trust, external trust, forest trust, realm trust. So these types of trust, how it works. And also he should have a good knowledge on the um, configuration of the trust relationship, and how to manage this trust relationship on any particular scenario. So these are all the things any professional should have knowledge on. And also the professional should have a good knowledge in Active Directory backup and restore. So because backing up and restoring of Active Directory, definitely you need to have additional skill. The regular data backup and restore is quite different from Active Directory backup and restore. So taking the backup might not be a challenge, but performing the restoration, definitely you need a skill. Restoration like non-authoritative restore or authoritative restore. First of all, we should have the understanding on what is non-authoritative restore and what is authoritative restore, and how to perform this non-authoritative and authoritative restore. In what scenarios non-authoritative restore can be performed, or in what scenarios the authoritative restore can be performed. So this can be these are all the essential skills any Windows professional should have. And also in the Active Directory specialist should have a good knowledge in the metadata cleanup. So usually the metadata cleanup will be used for forcefully removing any Active Directory objects like domain controllers or domains from the Active Directory database. So in case of improper removal of a domain controller or improper removal of a domain from the environment. So in that case, we should be able to clean up the Active Directory database using the metadata cleanup. So definitely the professional should have a good knowledge in this metadata cleanup, how to use this metadata cleanup, all these things. So these are all the topics, whatever the topics we have discussed till now. So any Windows professional or a Wintel professional should have a good knowledge on all these topics. So these are all that, apart from this, there are many topics. So these are all the topics minimum any Windows professional or Wintel professional should have. So with these essential skills, Definitely anyone can, if anyone has a good knowledge on all the discussed topics, so definitely he can crack through any of the technical interview for a Windows professional or a Windows profile. And now, whenever you go to an interview, they might be asking you about your infrastructure. So that we have discussed in the previous session. So where we discussed about the infrastructure, how you can deliver about your infrastructure. And the next question asked by the interviewers in most of the cases is, what is your roles and responsibilities in your existing company? Since you are going to uh, um, project yourself as an experienced professional. So when you're projecting yourself as an experienced professional, obviously you need to project your technical skills, and then you'll be asked to deliver about your roles and responsibilities. So now, when you're saying that I'm handling a domain controller, I'm handling a file server, I'm handling a DHCP server, I'm handling DNS server. So definitely, the interviewer will be asking you, okay, would you tell me your roles and responsibilities of your current environment. So here I'll just give you the example how to deliver about your roles and responsibilities. See, whenever I'm asked to deliver my roles and responsibilities. So I have to first of all split the servers. Like in my organization, I may have a different domain controller. I may have a file server. I may have a WSUS server. I may have a Exchange server. So in that case, whenever you're delivering, you cannot say just in common, I'm handling these servers. You have to say in uh, in our environment we have a domain environment. In domain environment, my roles and responsibilities in user administration, or you have to say creating user accounts when an employee joins the company, and adding the user to the groups based on the user's job role, and also adding the users to the OUs based on the user's job role or the project, and resetting the user account password based on the request or the ticket, and also unblocking the user account or the uh, pa- and resetting the password so based on the requirement, and also changing the or updating the group membership, or changing the OU membership based on the employee's new role. In case whenever a new employee joins, in that case we will define a certain configuration. And whenever the employee is promoted or the employee is moved to a new project, so in that case, so configuring the permissions or the policies based on the new job role or the project. So these are all the activities, these are all the roles and responsibilities in the user administration. And also deleting or disabling the user account whenever the employee leaves the job. And in group policy management, so our responsibility is to create and add group policy for the organizational units, and configuring GPO based on the project or team's requirement, and configuring password policy and account lockout policy based on the employee's security policies, and linking the GPOs to the OUs based on the project or team's requirement, and backup and restore of GPOs, and also troubleshooting the GPO related issues. So these are all the responsibilities in the group policy management. And speaking about the responsibilities in the file server administration, so basically we'll be asked to create and manage the shared folder and configure the access permissions based on the requirement. And also we'll be configuring the quota limit based on the requirement, and we'll be assessing the disk usage and the free space of the file server, and we'll be reporting that. And in DFS server, our roles and responsibilities will be to create the DFS namespace based on the requirement, and adding the folders to the DFS namespace, and configuring DFS replication based on the requirement, and monitoring DFS replication, and assessing the disk usage and free space of the DFS servers and reporting the same. And in RAID, uh, we will be asked to configure hardware RAID or software RAID levels based on the requirement. And also we are responsible for handling the disk alerts, and also we'll be expanding the RAID volumes based on the requirement, and migrating the RAID volumes based on the requirement, and repairing the RAID volumes whenever there is a disk failure or a disk error. In that case, we'll be repairing the RAID volumes with a new disk. And in DNS server, our responsibilities will be maintaining the DNS zones, and like creating the zone and managing the zones, and also managing the records, like creating, updating, and deleting the resource records based on the requirement, and managing the stale records, and configuring forwarders and conditional forwarders based on the requirement, and also troubleshooting the DNS related issues, and configuring the DHCP server. In DHCP server, we'll be having several responsibilities, like creating and managing the DHCP scope range, and reserving the IP addresses based on the requirement, and deleting the unwanted leases and reserved IPs, and backup and restore of DHCP, because in some cases the DHCP server may go down. In that case, using the backup of the DHCP, so we'll be restoring the backup in another new DHCP server. And also we will be responsible for managing the DHCP scope options. And in web server administration, uh, our responsibilities is to create and manage the websites based on the requirement, like managing the IA settings, and ensuring the websites are running without any issues, and configuring the SSL certificate for HTTPS based sites. And in FTP server administration, so we'll be creating and managing the FTP sites based on the requirement, and configuring the FTP home directory for the users, and configuring user authentication settings for users, and ensuring FTP sites are running without any issues. And in WSUS server administration, so our responsibility is to manage the WSUS synchronization schedule, um, uh, configuring the upstream servers, and creating the computer groups and managing the computer group memberships, and also approving the new patches to the testing computer groups. And once the testing is done, then approving the tested patches to the required computer groups, and performing the cleanup for the retired patches, and also maintaining the compliance of the desktops and the laptops and the servers. And in WDS, that is a Windows deployment server, our responsibilities will be in adding new operating system images based on the requirement, that is adding the install images, and capturing the reference computers images, and adding the reference computer image as a new installation image, and customizing the install image based on the requirement. And in terminal server, our responsibilities will be configuring and managing the remote desktop servers, which includes the session host server, session broker, and web access servers. And also we'll be responsible for creating and managing the session collections based on the requirement, and adding the remote applications to session collections based on the requirement, and managing user cal for the terminal service. So these are all the essential activities we'll be performing in the terminal servers. And in the printer server, we'll be responsible for adding the printers, network printers to the printer server, and managing the drivers for the printers, and managing the print queues, and configuring and managing the GPU settings for the printer deployment. And in FSMO rules, usually in FSMO rules, we will be responsible in maintaining the FSMO rules on the required domain controllers, like migration scenario or failure scenario. So in that case, we'll be managing the FSMO roles, and also we'll be ensuring the role holding domain controllers are available in the network, and also based on the requirement, we'll be transferring the roles. In Active Directory replication, so we'll be managing the intra-site replication and inter-site replication by ensuring the successful replication happens between the domain controllers, and when required, forcing the replication between the domain controllers using the report main command, and also configuring the Active Directory sites based on the locations of the domain controller, and configuring the global catalog server, and configuring the bridgehead server, and also troubleshooting the DNS replication related issues. And in Active Directory backup and restore, we'll be regularly ensuring that the system state data is backed up, and also we'll be performing the authoritative or non-authoritative restore based on the requirement. So this is how, whenever you are asked about, whenever you are asked to uh, explain about your roles and responsibilities, so you people has to deliver in such a way how I have delivered now. So delivering this, actually for this you need to have more practice. So my suggestion is, you first prepare what is your infrastructure. In that infrastructure, what are all the servers you have? In those servers, what are all the roles and responsibilities you are going to project? Because whatever the roles and responsibilities you are projecting, in that you should have enough knowledge. So first you ensure that you have good knowledge on that particular topic, or if you don't have enough knowledge, you just practice yourself, you read the or you gain more knowledge on that particular topic. So after that, you try to frame the delivery like how I have prepared here. Similar like this, you prepare by yourself. When you are asked about explaining the roles and responsibilities, you first prepare the content what you want to deliver. After preparing the content, you practice delivering this in front of the mirror or in front of your mobile phone. You just record the delivery, and once you have recorded, later you just review whether your delivery is good or not. So if there is any changes has to be done, you just repeatedly you perform this. See, whenever you go to an interview, if you want to face the interview without any hesitation or without any fear, so my suggestion is, you have to practice this repeatedly by on your own. So once when you are comfortable on what you are going to deliver, once you are sure what you are going to deliver, definitely you will not have any fear in the interview, or you won't have any fear in front of the interviewer. So my suggestion is, you first prepare what the content you are going to deliver. Whenever you are asked about deliver, or you say what is your roles and responsibilities, in that case what you are going to deliver, you prepare that content, and you repeatedly practice delivering the same content, and like rectify your errors or the mistakes, and then you get a final version, and through that you can confidently attend any technical interview. And that's all for this session. And thanks for you all for joining this session. And in the next session, we'll have another continuous topic of this interview session of for Windows administration. In the next session, we'll be discussing about how to deliver any technical content. Say example, when you are asked about explain about a DNS server, how to deliver the content, or when you are asked about FSMO roles, how you want to deliver. So these part we'll be discussing in the next session. And thanks for joining the session today. And thank you all. And if any thing you need to